about this group. We have had an off season this year, which is very beneficial when you're trying to add new players into the mix. Last year, everything, once we got the group assembled, was all about individual work. It was all about small groups with your roommate. We just weren't taking any chances, as all schools were around the country, and with a completely new team, that set us back early in the process. One thing I was really proud of last year's group is how they kept fighting through adversity, especially at the end of the year when COVID affected our whole team and they shut our group down for 3 weeks where really we couldn't even be in the gym. So I did appreciate everything about that group and the way we finished that season. I think it was great for the returning core that we have to have some success in the system and win a couple of those games excuse me, at the end of the year last year. This season, I've loved the mentality of our team, the way that they have approached the day-to-day workouts coming in. You only have to tell them things once, and it's we're so much further ahead. I guess to answer your question in a roundabout way, Robin, we're so much further ahead right now than we were a year ago because we've had an off season. We've been able to work a lot more on fundamentals. We've been able to get our system in place, so much better than we were able to a year ago. So I feel good about our group going in to our first official workout. We've had 4 hours a week, and I think we've maximized what we've been able to do in that amount of time. But, the important thing now, and our biggest thing that I'm really trying to get our guys and stress to our guys is the urgency and the passion that they have to play with on every possession if you're going to win consistently in this league.
Besides what you just said, what are you maybe working on in practice, focusing on in practice that maybe you couldn't last year?
Really pivoting, two-hand passing, just all the little things. When you only have a short amount of time to implement the system, you just really go right into the meat of what you're trying to do on both ends of the ball. Right now, I've been really happy with Coach Nate, with Coach Gates, in the player development stuff that we were doing going all the way back to the summer. We'll be able to get back to some of that with more individual work now that we have more time. You'd be amazed how quickly 4 hours goes, and you want to stay out there, but you understand the rules that are in place, and you only have so much time that you're able to implement what you can in that amount of time. But the individual stuff that Coach Gates, Coach Nate, myself have done, I've been really pleased with, and hopefully all that stuff carries over with the little things that we're trying to do and be better at this season.
You've returned a lot of experience from last year, but also added 9 new newcomers. How has that meshing gone, both on the court and the chemistry off?
Yeah, it is a group in the early stages that I feel has very good chemistry together. How that continues to carry over once we start playing games, you don't know yet. But everything that we've been doing, I've been really pleased with the chemistry of this team. It's so obviously very important with everything you've got going to be tied together. My single hardest job this year is going to be establishing a rotation. We've got a lot of players that are capable of playing, and all that will be determined in the next 42 days, 30 days of practice. The 2 exhibition games that we have against Peru State and against Colorado, which will both be great for our group, and then getting ready to play on November 8th against Western Illinois. So, this will all be determined, but we've got a lot of guys that are capable of being on the floor. It's going to be about going out there, starring in your role, accepting your role, and going out there and doing it as a team.
Right. Can you describe the level of play you've seen out of Bryce McGowan's in your workout so far?
Yeah, Bryce is as talented a kid as I've had an opportunity to coach. He is so gifted athletically. He's smooth, shoots it effortlessly, but he's a freshman. And same thing with Wilhelm. Both those guys, when you come in at a young age, there is a huge learning curve when you jump from level that they were playing at to going into the Big Ten and having to play against the most physical players on a nightly basis. The best player in the country, the number 1 player, will have a big adjustment. That's just the way it works. It's reality of this business. So as talented as Bryce is, we have to have a level of patience as well, just because of the learning curve that he has. But as far as an excitement level and a talent, I haven't been around many that have the physical gifts that he has. Now it's about getting him to understand every possession that he has to play has got to be full-out effort, all of our guys. But, yeah, Bryce, I've been really pleased. And just you guys will see it. He's a world-class kid, one of the nicest kids that I've been around. So, yeah, he's going to be a good one.
How have you seen Alonzo fit in? Some guys were kind of talking about last week.
Yeah, Alonso, we were very fortunate to get Alonso late in the game, especially when Delano decided to keep his name in the draft. It was imperative that we added depth to our back court, and to get a player of Alonso's caliber that late in the game, we feel very fortunate. A kid that has put up big numbers. His big thing that he's talked about is winning. They didn't have a lot of success a year ago, similar to our guys, and the commitment that takes on a daily basis. The buy-in you have to have, not only on days you feel good, but on days you got to fight through, fight through some things. But Alonso is perfect for our system because of his ability to get downhill and get into the paint. The thing I've loved about him is his passing ability. If we space the floor properly, he's going to find the right guy out there on the floor. Now, what we're stressing is simple plays. He's so gifted and talented in getting into the gaps and into the paint. Sometimes we just have to make the simple play the right play. And that's been a big emphasis. But, as far as Alonso, his motor, defensively, I've been, very happy with the amount of pressure that he's able to apply on the ball. Just a really complete player.
Alonso has kind of a unique energy about him, outgoing personality. I would say even at meeting day, probably, he was taking over Instagram and stuff like that. That do for his role, and he's going to be a primary leader for this team.
Yeah, anytime you're going to have the ball in your hands as much as Alonso is, you have to have leadership skills and leadership ability. And Alonso has shown that. He's got a great voice. He is energetic every time he steps on the floor, bringing our group together. Trey has really stepped up. I've been really pleased with Trey, with his voice. So it is. It's important, especially with your guards and your older players. As Alonso with his last year, Trey as a senior. So anytime you can have the guys or your playmakers, ball handlers, it's important to be able to have leadership qualities, and I've really seen that out of Alonso and Trey.
You have a lot of guards on your roster. How many of those guys are you comfortable with running that pick and roll?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're still figuring out exactly what it is with roles. I've always been a multi-handler guy, coach, and when you have multiple players that can get into the paint and make plays, I think it makes you much more difficult to guard. I thought one thing we really improved on last year is playing through our big. Derek Walker showed a great ability. He had 8 assists in our last game to make plays from the elbow, cutting off of him. So it's not only about the ball screens, it's about hitting the big and making the right play and reading the defense correctly. And we're much further ahead this year than we were last year at this time.
Between the additions and a full season of Derek and Eduardo, do you feel like the pick and roll can be a more effective part of your offense this season?
Yeah, and then you throw Wilhelm into the mix as well as a guy that can play in smaller lineups that can pick and pop and spread the defense out and take the bigs away from the basket. Take Kofi out of the lane, try to create more driving lanes. There's so many bigs in this league. If you can get them out of the paint and create driving lanes, that's going to open things up for everybody. We do have 3 guys, 2 that have played in the system. I love the way Eduardo finished our season last year. And Derek, once he got over his illness after missing the first season with a suspension, I thought he finished out the year really well, understanding what we needed out of him. And then you add a really dynamic piece in Wilhelm that has such a unique skill set. I really like where we are at that position.
Fred, of the returning players, who do you expect to take the biggest leap in their game this season?
Well, that's a good question. I hope all of them do. And you have to have that, again, to have consistency and success in this league. A lot of the players that were in the draft, unfortunately for us, came back to their teams. So, in order for us to make a jump in the standings, we're going to have improvement from everybody. And I've seen that. I've seen the offseason that we've had. Guys want to win. There's no doubt about that. What we experienced the last couple of years, really last year, I guess, with the returning guys, they want to make a big jump and accomplish something that's never been done with Nebraska basketball before.
Do you think your perimeter shooting is where it needs to be to fully run your system?
I think as far as our upgrades this year, perimeter shooting, I think, is the biggest area of improvement with our group. And we should have guys that can get into the paint and play make. And when you have to stay closer to the shooters and the floor spacers, it's going to open up things for everybody. Like I talked about Wilhelm in smaller lineups, Casey is as good a shooter as I've certainly coached at any level. When he misses, you're absolutely shocked that thing doesn't go in. Alonso certainly can make shots. C.J. Wilcher was a huge addition for us. in his shooting. Obviously returners from last year, Kobe, Trey shot a nice percentage from the three-point line. And then you add other shooters in Bryce, as well as Keon Edwards, who can make shots. So we've really upgraded our shooting. I think we've upgraded our depth, gotten better with our athleticism and our size. So really across the board, from an offensive standpoint, I think we've made big upgrades with our roster.
Shooting's always been a focus in your system. And so far here, you guys haven't had the best shooting numbers. When it doesn't work for guys coming from high school to college from the three-point line, in your experience, why doesn't it work?
Well, I think a big thing is the size and athleticism that you're playing against. We had the number one three-point shooting team in the country in the NCAA tournament. We played Kentucky, and with their length and athleticism, when they had Anthony Davis and Kid Gilchrist and Terrence Jones in that group, we shot 2 for 26 because of the length and athleticism. So when you make that big a jump, the speed, the quickness, you have to get your shot off quicker. So sometimes it doesn't translate right away. But if you can space the floor, it makes life easier. Our shot profile last year, 83% of our shots were restricted area and three-pointers. It's where you want it. We just got to make them. We got to make a higher percentage, both at the rim and from behind the line. And we feel that we have addressed some of those issues with the makeup of our group.
How much of a difference has it had, just having some returners back that have been through it? For you?
Yeah, very, very important. It's our first time really where we've had some continuity in going into year 3 now. And it's important to have some guys that can help the young players along, that can help Bryce, understand what this league is all about, to help Wilhelm what it's all about. Casey coming from junior college, to help him understand the urgency. So it is. Anytime you can have some continuity, it does make things a lot easier.
You guys don't have a ton of those wing defender type bodies on your team. How many of the guards do you think you're comfortable with guarding up a position?
Yeah, that's a great question. It starts with Trey. Trey gives us that ability to play a superstar. The example, guarding Io in that last possession last year, where I thought he did a great job staying in front. Unfortunately, they called a foul, but Trey can guard those really good wing players one-on-one. I think Keon Edwards is another guy that's got great size and in ability to move his feet at that position as well. So I'd say those two primarily, as far as having to guard and shut down a really good player. And then we're going to have smart positional defenders and be in the right spots, which was a big point of emphasis in the workout today after a scrimmage that we had last Friday as far as cleaning things up. Got a ways to go, as all teams do at this stage of the game, but we'll get there.
What about Corn Mcpherson? He's kind of got one of those bigger guard type bodies. People have talked about his defense so far.
Yeah, it's who he is. Probably more at the point. As far as what he can do, but he does have a big, strong physical body and a defensive mentality.
I know you have to speak generally about recruiting, but could you speak to the momentum as big weekends are ahead, and just I guess with fans back in the stands, even at football, and the people seeing sort of how the fan base reacts to Husker athletics, how that can help.
Yeah, it's so important to get these kids on campus, and we feel great what we accomplished through Zoom calls, and now that we're able to get these kids back on campus, even when they were here before football weekends. Just to see the facilities that we have and to see the fan support that we have, the resources that we have to put into the student athletes. But to experience Memorial Stadium with 93,000 in there, we do have some big weekends coming up. It's such a great recruiting tool to have for these kids, is to come play in front of what I think are the most supportive, best fans in the country. How patient they've been, understanding, where we took over. And, being supportive, not an empty seat in the house that first year. There wouldn't have been one last year. The excitement of having our fans to be able to see opening night on Friday. We expect an unbelievable crowd that night. And G. Herbo, one of my personal favorites, is coming in on Friday night as well. But, yeah, it's an exciting time. It should be a great weekend.
Fred, I wanted to ask you about Bryce. With him coming in as the highest ranked recruit in Nebraska history, and he's done a TV commercial already. Are you going to be keeping tabs, or what's your thoughts on how he's going to handle this as far as just, having all this on him?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Bryce and Trey, they were blessed with two of the best parents you can be around. The example that they set, these are two of the most polite young men that you'll ever be around. So, it starts, with the parents, with Bobby and with Pam. They're just phenomenal people, and they did a great job early in their lives of teaching them, the right way to grow up. And, I'm not worried about that because of the way that they were raised. You've got two humble kids, they're here. Bryce can look up to Trey, who's, like I said, been phenomenal as far as taking a huge leap in his leadership skills, and he's got good people around him to help him through and navigate through the ups and downs that you go through as a young player. And you're going to go through it. You always go through it. It's easy to play when things are going well, but when you have to be there for a player is when they're going through the tough times. And we feel very good about our staff and players that can help our young guys especially navigate through those difficult situations.
You guys healthy going to the start practices?
We're good to go. We're healthy going in. We should have everybody back.
Is Ed back? I know he was sick on
Yeah, Eduardo was back at practice today. Yep.
What do you hope that these high school kids coming in this weekend, what do you hope they see and get out of this experience?
Well, I think the biggest thing anytime we have recruits on campus is just to see the support that they will have as a student athlete at Nebraska. And it's two of the biggest things that we talk about that are so important for these young kids. One are the facilities, and I'm not sure there's better facilities, especially when the new project is completed, and also the fan base. And you'll see that across, we talk about it, it's not just football, basketball, it's all sports. And, if you have that support, you have that fan base that's there for you, through good times and bad, it really shows well when you have these kids on campus. So, that's our big thing this weekend, show the facilities, show the support that they will have as a student athlete at Nebraska.
These super highly rated kids, Bryce can probably relate to those guys better than most guys. What role does he play in that process?
Yeah, it is. Bryce, put us in a great position to get a 5-star athlete. And, I think your players are your biggest sellers of your program. How are they treated? How's the player development program? What's the style of play like? And a lot of programs, a lot of coaches, as you go through the recruiting process, they may tell you something, well, this is how we're going to do things moving forward. Well, you kind of are who you are. And I think our players can talk about that. I think it was a big thing that Trey was able to talk to Bryce about through the recruiting process when he opened it up, is how he was treated and how he got better as a player. So, it is. Your athletes are the ones that are selling it, and hopefully our guys do a great job with that.
Thank you. We also have some players.